At first, I thought it was just a normal hangover. I woke up like any other day, feeling terrible, feeling depleted, hadn't gotten any sleep, needed to drink to get through the hangover. But what I realized was something a lot more difficult and dangerous was going on. And while it felt like a normal hangover, while it felt like normal everyday life of an alcoholic or a heavy drinker, this was something I needed to worry about. And I didn't know what to do. There was no information, there was no doctor guidance or anything like that at that time, and I was confused. What I didn't know was that the very thing I was feeling, the very thing that I thought was just a normal hangover, could have proved to be deadly. And today, we're going to talk about the number one thing and many things that cause alcoholics to end in an early grave. We're going to talk about the pitfalls and the dangers, and sometimes what you might think is an ordinary, harmless hangover after a night of drinking could be deadly. Today, we're going to get to the nitty gritty of exactly what's going on, what you're feeling, and why you don't need to feel that way anymore. If you're anything like me and you hate hangovers so much that you have to drink through them, then this is the talk for you. If you're the kind of person who drinks and drinks and drinks even though negative things are happening in your life, if you're drinking even though your hangover is getting in the way of work or family or legal trouble or whatever it is, this is the talk for you. Or simply, if you're hungover and you don't know what you're feeling, this is the talk for you as well. Today, we are going to talk about the dangers of alcoholism, how they are a lot more subtle than you might think, and how almost no one is talking about this stuff. So, welcome to Talk Sober. I am Marcus, and this is Terry. Terry, how you doing today?
I'm doing all right, and I am not hungover.
That is a good thing. That's a good thing. Yeah, and what was it like? I know for me, a hangover seemed normal. It seemed like the everyday thing. Hey, this is what you do. You're just hungover because you drank. Everyone gets this. This is why so many people feel so bad all the time. But I didn't realize what else was going on. How was it for you? Did you realize what was it like when you first started like having hangovers every day?
Well, I did not think that the hangovers were anything more than just feeling like crap. I had the same stuff. I was fatigued. I had the sweats. I felt nauseated. I wanted greasy food and would eat it and then feel even worse. And, I didn't want to do anything. And, if I was really bummed out if I had to go to work. That would be even worse. I never did call off sick through a hangover, and I didn't allow any of my employees to call off sick because they were hungover either. But I did not realize those hidden dangers that a hangover might be a sign of. And they can be pretty dangerous. It can be some scary stuff that can be happening. And for me, usually it was a hangover every day. And like you said just a minute ago, I started to just drink through them so that I didn't have to experience them. I did, when I'd been drinking all day the day before, or just had a big party night or something, I'd wake up the next day, one shoe on, one shoe off, that sort of thing, blankets on the floor, all that ugly stuff that happens when you've had a heavy night of drinking. But I'd wake up the next day, or come to is probably a more accurate word, but I'd come to and I'd go and drink a bunch of water and figure out what happened the night before, and all that embarrassment, thinking about what did I do last night? Did I embarrass myself? Did I say something wrong? There was that mental aspect of the hangover, and then the physical part where I just felt like crap. What happens in your body is you produce this chemical that metabolizes the alcohol, and that chemical can cause inflammation in organs, and just makes you feel bad. On top of that, you have the dehydration effect because alcohol is a diuretic. It sucks water out of you as you're drinking. That's why a lot of times you got to go to the bathroom more than you normally would. But you have all these different factors that are happening. And if you've had an especially heavy night of drinking, or if you're an alcoholic or you're alcohol dependent, these symptoms can just get a lot worse. And for me, that's what was happening. So I felt the solution was to just keep drinking. And all that did was really push it off. And I just felt bad for a long period of time, like, days and days. It just wouldn't go away. And then, of course, that starts to affect everything in my life. Everything from not being able to work, not having good relationships because I'm in a bad mood all the time, all sorts of stuff, not being physically fit because I, don't feel like exercising, things like that. It's yeah, it's a spiral downward, and that's what was happening to me.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note Terry and I are not doctors or trained physicians. We're just two people who went through alcoholism and had some pretty bad situations. I remember thinking that hangovers were normal and I didn't know what to do with them. Like, if it wasn't for hangovers, I probably would still be drinking, in all honesty, because it's like, hey, you know what? That's what made me really feel bad and made me really, have the morning regrets and the OCD and trying to trace my thoughts. But those hangovers for me, I never really had a bad hangover. Like people say, oh, hey, this is a terrible one. Mostly because I didn't stop drinking. And that's the point where it really took a turn for the worse because I thought it was normal. I thought the hangover was normal. I thought what I was feeling was normal, but I didn't realize that something else was going on in my body and in my mind, and it was a deadly thing, right? I didn't realize these things until I ended up in the ER, and I didn't realize what was going on, and I
Yeah.
didn't realize that the quantities of alcohol that I was drinking, even though it seemed normal to me at the time, were actually deadly. Like if I went and had that now, I probably wouldn't last very long in my life because I'm not used to that. Back then, I had the tolerance, I built it up. And what happens is when you're having the hangover, your blood alcohol level starts to drop and you're starting to feel all the effects of the withdrawal, right? And the withdrawal is happening. Now, the withdrawal and the alcohol detox is, in fact, deadly. This is something I don't know why they don't talk about. I don't know why it's not on the bottle of the liquor. The lengths they go through to warn you about smoking, that's not on the liquor bottle. Apparently, the liquor companies make more money and give it to politicians or something, right? But the fact of the matter is this is absolutely dangerous. What you might think is a normal hangover day after day, what you might think is a harmless alcoholic, whether it's you or a friend or a family member or whatever it can be absolutely detrimental and life ending. And we have to understand that because Terry and I both thought we were living normal, albeit miserable lives. Right? We were drunks and would leave us alone and we're just going to drink and that's the way it is. We didn't realize, like, I don't think Terry woke up one day and was like, gee, I better knock it off or I'm going to have a seizure and end up in a coma. I don't think he thought that. Like, did you ever think that, Terry, or were you just...
No,
Yeah, you were
no,
completely...
that's no.
Yeah, and tell us what it was like leading up to that. Because I know for me, leading up to the ER and the mental hospital, I thought I was fine. I thought my problem was I just needed to control my alcohol. That was the
Right.
real problem. If I just control it, not have 17 at night, maybe have 1 or 10 or 8, right? I thought that was the problem. And I didn't realize that. But what was it like for you, Terry, leading up to that? Was there warning signs? Did it seem normal?
For I think it's a really common thing for people with alcohol dependence to think that everything is fine and to just think that this is normal. This is what everybody goes through. That's what I saw. I thought it was just normal. Maybe I drank a little bit too much. I had flashes of, I really am drinking too much. Maybe I should do something about it. And I did what you tried to do, and that was moderate, and that never worked. I'd moderate for 5 minutes. It was literally almost that bad by moderation. Then I'd go back to where I was, and I wouldn't have any idea how much I was going to drink that day until the day was over, until the next day, and then I would look at the bottle and it'd be gone. Leading up to my medical situation that I had, it was just a normal everyday occurrence. I had negative consequences through my drinking and some major negative consequences, but none of them were really health related. I was definitely getting out of shape My fitness level was really bad because I wasn't exercising, and I just wasn't getting around. I was sitting around drinking and watching bad TV. That's what my life had boiled down to. But when I finally decided to quit, um, well, it wasn't really a decision to quit, but sort of was kind of necessity. And I quit, and then I had seizures. And fortunately, when I had my seizure, I was in the hospital because somebody had seen how bad a shape I was in, and they were able to take care of it. But it almost killed me. It was some bad stuff, and I never saw any signs that this was going to happen. It just happened. I've talked to many recovering alcoholics and some people that may not be recovering anymore, but that have gone through the same thing or a similar situation where they just didn't, there was nothing that told them that they were going to have a medical emergency, and they just had it. And this is what's dangerous about this stuff is we don't know what our body is going to go through when we suddenly stop, or when with our heavy use, what it's going to turn into. And that's what's dangerous about this stuff. When you just drink too much and you keep going and going, and what happens, or at least what happened for me, is I just wanted more and more, and I kept on drinking more and more until there was nothing left. So it was some pretty bad stuff that happened.
Yeah, and it's interesting because it's unnecessary.
Yeah.
It's something to where I wish it was explained to me, which is why we started this channel and our course and everything like that. I wish it was explained to me that this is what's going on in your mind and your body. This is why you feel like you can't quit. This is why this stuff is happening. Much like people who get lockstepped into the role of depression or sadness, or locked into a relationship they feel like they can't get out of. And I'll tell you that you could get out of any situation if you just choose not to be in it, right? If I choose to say, well, I'm not going to deal with alcohol anymore, and I'm going to realize that all the pressure and all the thoughts about alcohol are coming from alcohol itself. Much like if you were in a relationship with someone who's abusive, right? That person's going to try to get you to stay because that's what they do. You're their supply of bad stuff or good stuff or whatever it is. And you can't see your way out of it because you're in it and it's talking to you about how it's not so bad. Now, with Terry and I, right, we were drinking so much and we didn't realize that it was bad, and we didn't realize it was the alcohol, right? We blame everything but the alcohol. It's not the alcohol's fault. Everyone drinks alcohol. Why am I having this issue? Well, we need to realize that the amounts of alcohol that we were drinking were alcoholic, right? And if you want to test to measure whether you're alcoholic or not, it's continuing to drink even though bad consequences are happening in your life. Might be legal stuff, might be hangovers. For me, it was hangovers, physical stuff, mental deterioration. I was screwing up my business because I was drinking so much, and family was suffering, and all these things were happening, but I continued to drink. Right now, if you had that normal, if you were like, hey, don't eat toast in the morning because you got legal problems and you got this and you got that, you'd be like, okay, well, screw toast. I'm done with that. But with alcohol, it's a little bit different because you're dealing with chemical dependency, and you're dealing with the issues that alcohol brought on in and of itself. And you might be sitting there thinking, well, I'm just having a normal hangover because I drank too much, and I'm just one of those who can't control their liquor or whatever it is. Well, chances are you're probably an alcoholic. Right? If you can't control your liquor, that's kind of the definition of alcoholic. I couldn't control my liquor even though bad things were happening, even though I knew I was going to feel terrible. I was going to screw up things in my life. I was going to mess up relationships in my family and have health problems, right? My liver enzymes were off the chart. Right now, we're talking to a friend who I think they're like debating liver transplant or something like that, all because of drinking, right? And it's like, okay, why is this acceptable? Why do we not look at this as, hey, drinking is the problem? Because all my life I looked at drinking is the solution. You got a hangover, drink more. You got this, drink more. Bad things happen, drink more. Good things happen, drink more. And I didn't understand that this perpetual cycle was completely deteriorating my mind and my body. Completely. To the point where I ended up in ERs and mental hospitals. Ended up in rehab. Ended up not knowing where I was half the time. All kinds of things started to happen, and I didn't realize that on top of all this, you got like people who drive drunk, you got people who do things drunk, fights, and all kinds of things that are happening. Right? We went to a concert the other day, and drunk people were fighting, and I'm like, I'm here to enjoy the concert. I don't think we need to get in a brawl, right? And it can all be avoided by not having alcohol. And once you realize, hey, wait a minute, alcohol is in fact the problem. And you might not want to admit it. I sure as hell didn't. I would have taken anything other than alcohol being the problem. Blame it on myself, blame it on my family, my upbringing, blah, 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 everything. But what did all those have in common? I was drinking.
Alcohol. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's something that we got to come to grips with, because you might think you're having a normal life and, oh, you just get a hangover 3 times a week, whatever, drink it off. But it might be more than that. And it's a slippery slope. It's a tough one to get out of. What are your thoughts on that, Terry?
Well, I think taking what you're saying one step further, because, I realized, I did eventually realize that alcohol was the problem. My challenge is how do I stop? And, the hangovers, we're talking about hangovers here, and hangovers was definitely a sign, and it is a sign that alcohol might be a problem. Maybe an occasional hangover. I think we all dealt with that before alcohol was a problem. But for me, hangovers started to become the norm in life. And when that's happening, then there's definitely a problem. And with that being said, hangovers aren't necessarily a sign, because some people don't get hungover ever. Mm-hmm. So don't think that just because you're not getting hangovers, if you're having negative consequences from drinking and you don't get hangovers, alcohol might still be a problem here. Yeah. But it can definitely be a warning sign. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And for me, it was difficult for me to figure out how to get the help. I had to reach out. I had to do exactly what I didn't want to do. The biggest thing that I did not want to do was reach out and talk to somebody about the serious stuff of I have to quit, because that would mean that I wouldn't have this solution anymore in my life. And I'd have to talk about uncomfortable things, which I absolutely didn't want to do, and I'd never done in my life in the past before. And that's a direction I had to go to stop. That decision was one thing. It was big, but following through with it and taking that action to get sober, that's what was able to get me on that road to sobriety. And that's we're trying to show you guys what to do here, is how to get to that road to sobriety and how to stay on it.
Yeah. Well, and I'll tell you, I didn't get hangovers a lot, but I did feel bad a lot in the morning. Right? Yeah. I never got a good night's sleep. I was always depleted of vitamins because of alcohol. And for the last 8.5 years, I haven't had that. And I look at that and I'm like, wow, what a difference in life. I used to think that was the way of life. That was the norm.
Right.
It's not. I could wake up feeling great. I could wake up and go running or do whatever it is you like. I hate running, but if I liked running, I'd do that. My favorite exercise after I wake up is going back to sleep. That's my favorite exercise.
Well, see, you could do that before you couldn't.
Exactly. Yeah, and I remember I used to have a bottle of something next to the bed, because I'd wake up at 2 and 4 and 6, and I wouldn't be able to function. And then finally I'd wake up at 6, I'd take the bottle with me, I'd drink, or I'd go in the garage where I'd hid the box wines, right? I'd go get those $1 box wines at the CVS or whatever. I'd get like 50 of them, throw them in the garage, because then I knew, hey, I could just pop one of those open whenever I have it. Now, were they good? No, they were terrible. But hey, I didn't care. At that point, I didn't really care. I just needed alcohol of some sort. Right. And you start to realize how far you've gotten. I remember well before I started getting sober, we had kept cooking wine, because I'm like, okay, well, it's like 10% salt. I don't think I'll be drinking that. Guess what? I found myself drinking that.
Yeah.
I had to chase it with water because it was so salty, but
That's all
how that's where you get. And I think that, the vision we have of addicts versus alcoholics is vastly different. And the only reason it's vastly different is because alcoholism is socially acceptable. It's the only reason, right? Like you look at, you read the book Wolf of Wall Street. That guy's culture was around people who did all kinds of drugs, and it was acceptable. It wasn't not normal. It was like, he's falling out of his, fancy car again. Yep, he sunk a yacht. It's normal. And I think we need to look at this as we are all addicts. We are all addicted. We're all chemically dependent. It doesn't matter what chemical you're dependent to. I mean, it matters obviously for health reasons. Obviously, alcohol detox and some others is very dangerous. And I think detoxing from anything is dangerous, but we don't understand it. And I'll never forget one time when I went in rehab, and there was a guy there who was one of the counselors. He'd been sober like 25 years or something. And I said to him, I'm like, oh, hey, are you drugs and stuff or just alcohol? And he's all, just alcohol? And he kind of like got irritated and got in my face. He's like, what do you mean just alcohol? He's like, you guys come in here and you're detoxing. You guys are the ones that die. So you're just alcohol. Might need to rethink it. And I had realized, okay, yeah, maybe I did minimize it because it's socially acceptable. It's on the grocery store shelf. There's a commercial about it every 5 minutes on TV. I mean, what gives? Well, it is a socially acceptable drug that you could be chemically dependent on. Are there millions of people that can normally take it? Yeah. There's also millions of people that can go to the doctor and get a jar of, or a bottle of, some pain meds and be fine. I'm probably not one of them. I'm the kind of person, I got asthma. I get something that's basically like, an upper for asthma, and I like it. And I had to go tell the doctor, hey, find me something else because I like this too much. I will stay up for 5 days in a row and work. Right? And we need to understand that maybe it's not me. Maybe I have this issue with it, and it doesn't matter why. Oh, you're weak, you're whatever. I don't know. Is it weak to be affected by a chemical? No. There's lots of chemicals that'll affect even the toughest, strongest person. And once we understand that this is not normal, right? If you're watching this and you're in the midst of drinking and you're hungover all the time and your life's deteriorating, it's not normal. It's your new normal, but it's not normal. And I remember last year we were dealing with my dad dealing with late stage throat cancer. And I remember watching the deterioration because it's like you're watching this guy fall apart in front of you, literally, right? Like you can't do a damn thing and he's falling apart. And you're like, where's the doctor that's supposed to, put a Band-Aid on this stuff because it's not working? For him, you watch the new normal slowly happen. And this is the guy who every year when it would get cold outside, he said the dark ages are coming because he hated the cold. He didn't like anything outside of his normal homeostasis. But now you're watching him slowly deteriorate, and the normal just keeps getting worse and worse and worse until finally it was the end. Now, alcoholism changes your normal. You think, it's just a normal hangover. Oh, I just got drunk at the party. Oh, I just had too many. Oh, I just had another DUI. Oh, I can't remember anything I did last month. Oh, it's not that bad. I fell down. My grandma fell down. Half of her head was gone. Still contemplated drinking, but they mandated like AA for the 6 months that she was in the hospital. And thank God for that judge because that's what got her sober. Other than that, she would have just gone and fell and hit the other side of her head and had no head. Right? And these are the things we look at, and it's not normal. It's not normal.
Yeah, my normal got lower and lower. My bar got lower and lower every minute. And the hangovers were definitely a sign of it. And the hangovers were normal. It was half a day, then 3/4 of a day, then a full day, couple days. I think somebody on here had mentioned that they every time they have a heavy night of drinking, they're hungover for like 4 or 5 days. Yeah, it affects some people real heavily, and it's a form of withdrawal, is what it is, and
Hmm.
that's what it was for me. Is that I needed more. I had this good feeling that alcohol would give me, and it made me feel great all night long. And then all of a sudden, it's gone, and my body was craving it. And as a dependent for alcohol, that I needed it. I needed to replenish it to get back to that low bar of normal that I had. That's the way it was. And I can see by the comments that maybe a few of you have experienced some of what we're talking about. It's pretty good.
Yeah, and
But
it's just, it's such a difficult thing because you can't see your way out.
right.
It doesn't seem like there's any way. It doesn't seem like there's anything you can do. And no one seems to have the answer you need because the answer you need is not to drink, and that's not the answer you want. It's not the answer I wanted. Why? Because I didn't have a better solution. This was the best solution I had to a bad day, a bad life, a bad this, a bad that, dealing with my thoughts, dealing with the. And you realize that that stuff is not real. And a lot of it is caused by alcohol. I remember I couldn't shut my thoughts off. It's because I kept having a downer and my brain was trying to function normally. And so my thoughts raced. Anxiety, because I was having a downer. When I didn't have my downer, I felt like, I'm anxious. And what's happening is we have to look at that and understand that alcohol is causing most of our problems.
Yeah. Hey, Danny, you just asked, has anyone ever detoxed with going to the doctor? I just clarified, you mean without? I mean, the way to detox is to go to the doctor. Absolutely.
Yep.
That's definitely it. But yeah,
Yeah, you definitely
definitely
want to
go to
go to
that.
the doctor detoxing because it is dangerous.
Yeah.
Ben's talking about, I think it's Ben, yeah, or DMC. Yeah, he almost fell, or he did fall, and had close signs, close calls when he was drinking. Those weren't enough to get me sober. I actually didn't care. I was like, okay, well, this is my life, and if I do something stupid and end it, like I didn't want pain, but I wasn't afraid of just like going out.
Absolutely.
I remember one time I fell on my head, and the security at the hotel took me up into my room, and I wasn't enough. I was like, wow, I literally fell on my head away from home by myself, and that's not enough.
Right.
What's going to be enough? And for me, nothing was enough. I needed someone to come along and say, hey, this
No.
is the way you're living, and this is why. I needed an explanation, not you're weak and you need to quit and go to the blah, 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 blah. No, I needed someone to say, this is what alcohol does. You're not special. It's what it does to everyone. Some people, they just don't drink 500 gallons like you do. And I needed to understand that that didn't have to be normal for me. I didn't have to feel that way anymore. Put the bottle down. Yeah, there's a long road. Like the first year pretty much sucked. But then I learned to live without alcohol, and I found out is the best thing that ever happened.
Yeah, Grimm says many broken bones from blackout drunk, and people just brush it off like, oh, the things we do when drunk. And yeah, I have many friends that are in recovery that have gone through the ringer, and they have many scars to show from it. My one little thing is this: my left thumb, it doesn't bend. I severed tendons in it from drinking and didn't do anything about it, so it's stuck straight. It's good for hitchhiking, I guess. But yeah, it's dangerous stuff. As it took a lot for me to quit, and it takes a lot for most people to quit. But we can stop at any time, and you can start back up again. I wouldn't recommend it. It's not the safest thing to do, but that's the one good thing about quitting is you can quit right now. You can quit for the rest of the day. You can quit tomorrow. You just keep doing that over and over again. You can stay stopped.
Absolutely. And if you want to learn about some of the stuff that we did to stay sober and get sober and some of the mindsets that help us, because I remember in rehab, they told us you only need a few good ideas to beat this. Some really good ones. And they might change over time. And in our course over at talksober.com, you can go over to talksober.com, click the big yellow button, sign up. It's like $1 a day, which is practically nothing. I spent more than that probably every minute as an alcoholic. And we start to understand what it is that changes our mind. What is it that helps? I remember just the other night I was talking to one of my kids about an issue they were having with their thoughts. And I had mapped it out. And I said, look, this is how it works. And she's like, that helps. That's something that I can use over and over to help me with this thought. And that's kind of what our course is about, is to help you understand what's going on, how your mind is working, and what you need to do to get out of that thought loop, to get out of those thought processes, and how to stay away from alcohol. And the best way to stay away from alcohol is to know that it is the problem. Emphatically, not a question, it is the problem.
Yeah, and we need to, at least for me, I had to find a solution, and I had to get some help with that solution. We can provide you with some of that help. And
Absolutely. Yep.
Check it out, talksober.com. We also have a Facebook group. Did you mention that already? I don't.
Yeah, let me show them the stuff here. Let's see. Okay. So talksober.com, you can go right here like this to talksober.com. Click on the big yellow button if you want to join our recovery class. It's $27 a month. You can cancel whenever you want. You just put all your info in here like this. This also supports what we're doing on the channel. So if you believe in what we're doing, if you like what we're doing, this helps us keep going. Right now we're still running a negative, but we do this. It's a labor of love. That's what we want to do. And then if you look over here, there's also a Facebook group. There's some letters, some other information that you can get about how to stop drinking and how to deal with the mindset. Because I think that once alcohol is out of your mind or out of your body, then it's all a mindset game. So that's
and click on that, go there and check out that Should I Go to Rehab? And there's a little test on there you can check and see, and check out that test.
Yeah,
cool.
Should I go to rehab? There you go. Little test, videos, all kinds of stuff to help you.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thanks for being here today. Stay sober, stay safe, and we'll see you next week for our Thanksgiving show. We got a Thanksgiving show, yeah?
Sure.
All right. It'll be like 1 degree over there.
Yeah.
So, don't try to thaw your turkey outside. It'll probably get more frozen.
It's not going to thaw.
So, All right, guys. Have a good one. We'll see you next week.